Give us this day our daily bread. You've probably heard it before, but maybe not even thought a whole lot about it. Truth is, I love me some bread. I like going to a good steakhouse, but maybe just as important as a good steak is the possibility of having really good bread delivered to my table. But in most of the world, and really throughout most of history, bread was not considered just a complement to the main course. It actually was a staple. Therefore, when it speaks of bread, it's speaking of all food, and more specifically, all provision. So when Jesus tells us to pray for our daily bread, He's telling us actually to pray for our provision, to expect, to ask Him to provide for us what we cannot necessarily provide for ourselves outside of His blessing. And I'm good with that. The problem is that Jesus says, pray for your daily bread, which means I have to ask for it continually. Now, I don't know about you, but I need a little more than just enough bread for one day. If I've only got enough bread for one day, I'm feeling really nervous, really anxious. So I want to be contented and I want to be generous, but I want to do it out of my prosperity. I don't want to do it out of my poverty, which is interesting because poverty to me would be only enough bread for one day. That's why I get so nervous. So as I travel around the world and I go to other countries, particularly on mission trips, and I hear them pray, I'm always kind of overwhelmed by the manner in which they pray. And they pray, God, thank you for this food. We are so grateful for this food. And it's almost as if they really mean it. Because you know why? They do. Yesterday, they didn't know that they would have enough food for today. For me, it's just kind of ceremonial. It's just kind of words that I recite. For them, it's a way of life. If all I had was what those individuals in those foreign countries and those third world countries actually have, I would be incredibly worried. I would be anxious all the time. Maybe that's why Jesus says in the exact same chapter that we find the Lord's Prayer in Matthew chapter 6, He says this, therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not more valuable than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to your span of life? And why are you anxious about your clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow, and they neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all of his glory was not arrayed as one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will He not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Therefore, do not be anxious. See, just like Jesus does for the birds and the flowers, He provides for us even when we can't see it, even when we don't know we need it. He knows even better than we do. So I'm going to tell you a little secret, but you got to promise not to tell my youngest 3 kids. So ever since they were little, I have made all 5 of my children purchase their mom's Christmas gift, birthday gifts, and Mother's Day gifts. I tell them they've got to take money that they've saved from an allowance or from some odd jobs that they've done for us or others, and they had to take that money and buy her gift. And so they would go out into the store and they would buy her sometimes some really interesting gifts. It started really early on when they only had a couple of dollars to their name, but now it's gone to $30, $40, $50, and they've actually combined them and bought her some really neat gifts, including a towel warmer. Hint, husbands, that's a really good gift to give your wife. Unfortunately, it was my kids that gave it to my wife. But what my kids don't know at this point in their life is that at night, I sneak into their room after they've gone to sleep, and I reimburse all of the money that they have paid for my wife's gift, and I round up. So at the end of the day, they weren't out anything. They actually had everything provided and a little bit more than they actually needed. They thought they needed one thing, but in reality, their father, a good father, knows what they need even more. I think this is exactly what God does for us. So what I'm teaching my kids is about generosity and sacrifice and the importance of giving. But one day they're going to learn there was a bigger thing going on kind of above the line, something they didn't even see. It was about a father who was providing for them even when they didn't know they needed. The nature of the father to bless the children. You see, it's never been about the provision. It's always been about the provider, and He wants us to depend on Him. If we don't recognize that it's about the provider, then we will find ourselves getting incredibly anxious. We will never actually find ourselves content. We'll be working over and over and over again to provide for ourselves, despite the fact that most of the variables we don't even control. The Apostle Paul says in Philippians chapter 4, there's a verse that all of us are familiar with. It's Philippians 4:13. It says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But right before that, he says this. He says, I have been at the top and I've been at the bottom. And I have learned the secret of being content, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or want. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That verse is really great. It should say, I can face all things through Christ who strengthens me. And this is important because whatever it is that you're going through, whether you're at the top or at the bottom, there is something that can come out of it, and that can be a lesson learned about contentment. You see, the Apostle Paul, if you follow most of his writings, he talked about all of his understanding coming from revelation. The Holy Spirit just gave him these incredible gifts of revelation. But when it came to contentment, Paul realized that it was not something that God would give him. It was something that God made him learn by trial and error. It must be learned. And it's learned by asking for your daily bread. Perhaps this prayer that says, give us this day our daily bread, is actually a motto. It's a reminder that God provides for us, that if we say it long enough, eventually we'll receive it. And if we receive it, eventually we'll believe it. And as we believe it, we begin to live it because we look back and recognize He has always provided in the past. You see, in my life, 19,292 days have gone by with me experiencing His abundant provision. And most of those days, I didn't even ask for it. So, the next time you pray and thank God for your food, I hope that you'll be thanking Him for all the provision. That maybe it'll sound something like this: God, I am grateful and thankful for all the things that you have given to us. And I want you to use this food to remind me that you provide in every situation. May this bread from below remind me of the bread from above that nourishes my soul. And may I recognize that Jesus Christ is all I need. God bless you, and may you have a great discussion.